really is a very unique branch of artificial intelligence. Gen AI systems often allow for interactive user engagement. Now, this allows users to guide the creation process, either through prompts or parameters or something else that the user will use to hone and to build that content. Many generative AI models can operate across different types of data, and this allows it to combine, for example, text and images. One of the more popular applications of generative AI allows for someone to describe an image and just to describe the content of the image, the different styles that it wants the image to mimic and to emulate. And what it will do is it will take that typed text and that prompt, and it will generate an image based on what was typed into that particular prompt. Now, these models, these GenAI models, also learn from vast amounts of data. So they identify patterns and structures, and from these patterns and structures, they're able to generate coherent and contextually relevant content. And again, the quality of the output, it does mimic human creativity, but at the same time, it's largely dependent on the diversity and the size of the training data. Some of the more popular applications of GenAI might use a base model like a large language model. And that large language model can have billions and even trillions of parameters that it will make use of as it's generating new content for the people that are interacting with that particular application. Now, I was looking through my news feed earlier in the week, and the other day I came across a new application of GenAI in an article from TechCrunch, of all places, called Arcade AI. Now, Arcade AI is a perfect example of a particular application of generative AI. So the first thing you will notice is that it will generate new content. In this case, it's generating a new design for a piece of jewelry. In this particular application, it also allows for interactivity. Users can create that design for the jewelry and refine the design of the piece. They might say, hey, listen, I want it in this particular metal or with these particular gemstones, or I want a bracelet or a necklace or a wristlet or something of that nature. It is also supports multimodality. So it can generate the design of this piece of jewelry from preferences that the user sets, maybe some text descriptions that the user inputs, and the user can also upload images as references for the design of this particular piece of jewelry. And finally, the data-driven aspect of this is preserved as Arcade AI uses a mix of third-party data models that are fine-tuned for image generation. So really all four of the characteristics of Gen AI that we just went through are inherent and resident within Arcade AI. So it's a perfect application of this particular technology. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to bring in Alan Hester for him to delve a little bit deeper into some of the trends we see in the Gen AI space and how Nividus builds its solutions to take advantage of this rapidly changing landscape.
Thanks, Mark. Mark's going to come back a little bit later and we're going to show you, or he's going to show you a demo and walk through maybe a couple of case studies where we have used these technologies already with some of our customers. But first, we're going to go through some focus on generative AI as a category. I would say that if you think of global generative AI as a market, right now in 2024, that market is $20.9 billion, but they're expecting by 2030 that global market will be 136.7 billion. And so that's big numbers and growing very quickly. If we look at that in a segmented way, within healthcare, we're looking at about 22 billion by 2032. Within manufacturing, 6.4 billion, and within banking or BFSI, about between 200 and 340 billion. So, I mean, these are all very big numbers. One of the things that I forgot to call out is that if you look at these graphics that I'm using, these images, you would say, oh, wow, your graphics department, your art department is really messed up. But I had the idea just earlier today that really we should have tried to create this entire presentation using generative AI. But I did not have time to do that. But what I did do was I created each of these images using generative AI. So this can give you some idea of what's possible. One thing that I could say for sure, because this was hugely frustrating for me, is don't ever try to create images with text on them, because I tried many different tools, and I'd say they all struggled mightily to do a good job at representing the text on the image. So you could see in the ones that I've included that have some text on them, you know, it looks okay, but I had to go through many samples to get to these ones that had the text correct. In many cases, it was just various forms of Greeking that was used, or it's the same text repeated over and over again. So we're not going to go into that. You know, our focus isn't on image creation, but it's interesting that that is one of the things that you can use the tool for. I also wanted to kind of point out that AI, as Mark already said, generative AI is a subset of AI, but then large language models, which he also mentioned, which is what ChatGPT and Claude, those things that people are using a lot more day after day now, are really large language models, which is kind of a subset of generative AI, in much the same way that generative AI is a subset of AI. And the big difference is that the LLMs, as compared to the broader category of generative AI, is focused only on language. So that just means that the models are using the text itself to come up with the answers. And when you start picking that apart, and we're not going to do that in this session, but if you start picking apart how they work and how they come up with responses, it's very interesting, because it's not really how you would think that it would work. And it's amazing that it's able to come up with the answers that it does most of the time. So if we look at why this is important, there's no real rocket science here. I don't think this will be surprising to any of you to look at this list. And this also really isn't a comprehensive list, but we're going to specifically talk about not just generative AI, but combining generative AI with intelligent automation, which is really what Nivedis does. That's our area of expertise. So that's what we know best, how you would use generative AI in conjunction with intelligent automation. And so, you know, these things that we have listed here are some great broad categories, but then I also want to kind of look at it more from the standpoint of, per industry, what are specific use cases that you might want to look at, depending which industry you're in, that can heavily leverage these technologies. So, by the way, these icons or these images that are created on this page were also created by generative AI. The first one is supposed to represent BFSI, banking, financial services, and insurance. And so within that, that vertical, good use cases for generative AI with intelligent automation or automated document processing and compliance. Obviously, that's a heavy compliance industry, a lot of documents, a lot of documentation, and generative AI combined with intelligent automation can do big time document processing, handling lots and lots of pages of all kinds of different documents and make sense of it all. So This is especially useful in cases like KYC or anti-money laundering, those kinds of things. Also generating personalized customer communication, fraud detection and reporting, and automated claims and policy document generation. The second icon there is representing healthcare. That one's a little bit, I'm not sure anyone would get healthcare from that, but that was the best option that I saw. Within healthcare, you can look at things, again, a lot of document and content related applications here. So clinical documentation and summarization, patient interaction and education, automated medical coding and billing, and then a bunch of applications more on the life sciences side really than just healthcare, but like research and clinical trial data synthesis, those kinds of things. The next one we have is manufacturing. That one I thought was pretty good in terms of the icon itself that was created. Within manufacturing, you could look at things like quality control, defect analysis, production scheduling and preventive maintenance, customizable training content for workforce upskilling, and enhanced supply chain collaboration. One of the interesting things that we have talked to some customers about in the manufacturing space is using this kind of technology in conjunction with other technologies maybe that they're using on the manufacturing floor and pulling in the data and being able to control things like making sure that you have enough inventory available for the orders that you know are coming in. And so there's a whole lot of different things that you can do with that. The last industry we want to talk about here is supply chain. And here we could talk about things like intelligent demand forecasting, order management, supplier communications and contract analysis, real-time logistics summarization and incident reporting, automated inventory insights and restocking recommendations. And each one of these you could drill down to a very fine-grained level on how these technologies could help you out. But these are just kind of high level to give you some ideas. And we'll delve into these a little bit more when we get to the demo and the case studies. So at this point, I just want to give you kind of a high level view of the Nividus platform and where Nividus with generative AI, intelligent automation, how it all fits together. We basically have a low-code platform for building intelligent end-to-end automations for your business. So the studio is the component that lets you build things. Sometimes our customers build them themselves, or sometimes they have us build them for them, or work with one of our partners. Then there's a control center interface, which is where all the human interactions happen. That's also where all the bots are controlled. That's where all your data, reporting, dashboards, all of that lives. And then there are bots that can be attended or unattended that are out there as agents, usually fetching or putting data into various systems, various places. And then the smart bot component is the Nividus AI component, and that's where the generative AI gets tied in. So you'll understand a little more about that as we go, probably. Just looking at it from the standpoint of features, we talked a little bit about this in the discussion about use cases per industry, but just looking at it from a feature standpoint, how can those technologies be used to solve any of your problems, or what kind of problems could they really solve for you? You know, you can see some things listed here, but again, this is not an exhaustive list, but things like enhanced document processing and analysis, generative AI can help to read text, summarize, extract key data points of any kind of text, even when it's not in a structured format. Dynamic content generation, we've already talked a lot about that. doing advanced decision support through pattern analysis, natural language understanding, so that human-like interaction capabilities can be put into things like chatbots and virtual assistants, so that complex customer service tasks can be automated even when it requires a lot of detailed understanding and multiple steps and follow-up. Being able to do automated insights and reporting, training and knowledge base creation, contextual adaptability in workflow automation. This is a big one. A lot of companies have workflows that are not always fixed, and so there is often this need to be able to adapt to certain situations or contexts that are out of the ordinary. And so usually those require some kind of human escalation, but with generative AI, you're able to get past a lot of that without having to have humans involved necessarily. And then image and video processing, we've already talked a little bit about that. Lastly, we have here a slide that's just talking about the importance of approaching this more holistically. So each of these things on their own can do a lot. So if you look at these components we have listed: robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, low-code process automation, generative AI, these are all parts of the Nividus platform. They're already integrated together in a single place so that you can easily and quickly build these automations or have them built. I mean, honestly, you don't have to be a developer to build these kinds of automations, but in most cases, the people building them are developers. So a lot of our customers don't have the staff available. It's not that they don't have their own developers, but typically their developers are very busy with other things. So in many cases, we end up building it for them. But anyway, I'm not going to go into any more detail because I'm trying to save some time for Mark and getting to the demos, but you can see how these things are complementary to each other and allow you to solve a lot more problems when you combine them if you look at them in isolation. So now let's turn it back over to Mark, who will walk us through a demo. And let me, oh, he has already done it. Great.
Yes, thank you, Alan. Let me just share my screen here and show you a demo of a bot. And in this particular instance, this bot is using a lot of the concepts that Alan described in terms of generative AI, but it also combines the robotic process automation, other artificial intelligence technologies, as well as process orchestration. So in this case, we have automated a service desk, and we're going to have an admin logging into our control center at this point, and the admin is going to schedule an automated process to run. Now, this isn't typically what happens with our automated processes. Typically, they run at regular intervals throughout the day, or they can respond to certain system events. Now, with the bot started, the bot is going to be logging into the service desk, which is email-based, and it is going to begin to take some action on an email that it has received to change the address in a particular insurance policy. Now, oftentimes, bots can do these types of tasks in and of themselves. They don't need to involve humans. But in this case, the bot is using natural language processing to figure out what it needs to do with this particular insurance policy. Now, I'm going to pause the video here just for a second because this is really a very interesting view of the process. What this is showing is that the bot has categorized this email, and it has a category of request. Its subcategory is others. And for lack of a better term, its subcategory is change in insured address. So again, this is manual activity that the bot is able to do in and of itself, alleviating somebody of this responsibility. The other thing that it does too is you might notice on the second row there's a sentiment of positive. So this email has been determined to be of positive sentiment. So if the email was a negative sentiment or it was neutral, maybe it would have a different path through the process based on the sentiment that is expressed in the email itself. Okay, so now once it's done processing the email, it's going to move that to the processed emails folder. And now it is going to be done with that particular portion of the process. Now we're going to have a human logging into our control center. And what they're going to do is they are going to perform what we call an agent review task. Now, this is where you're going to see some of the Gen AI capabilities of our platform. So in this case, there's an agent review task, and Jenny's going to complete that. And so she has all the information that she needs at her fingertips through our control center to determine what she wants to do with this particular request. Now, again, she can look at the email itself. She can look at the attachment that was part of that email. There's content that's been extracted from that attachment using another AI technology. And again, it's all there centralized, so she doesn't have to go into various systems in order to make a determination as to what the next step should be. She can also have some review comments, which you'll see later in the demo. And here is a view of the process using our orchestration capabilities. And when we orchestrate a process, we can orchestrate both manual and automated tasks together. So here is part of the GenAI capability where Kelly is just going to give a user prompt and she's going to automatically generate the response to this email. Now again, generative AI is all about generating unique content. So that prompt was entered and this email has been generated using GenAI. And again, through a quick review, this particular individual can say, okay, you know what, this all looks good. I don't need to change anything. This is going to be our response back to the customer. So she also has determined that there is some approval that is going to be required on this particular interaction, on this particular case. And so she's going to type in some comments and get that approval queued up so that it can be taken care of at that point. Okay, so we're running out of time a little bit here, but I definitely did want to show you that portion of the process because I think it's an important one that shows the value of having something like a generative AI approach in this particular interaction so that those emails or any responses to the customer can be generated very, very quickly and very, very efficiently as the process continues. Now, I do have a particular use case that I would like to review with you, and this particular use case has to do with a goods received notice creation and a certificate of that is verified for a pharmaceutical company. In this case, this particular company was dealing with a lot of different challenges. They had around 100 consignments that they needed to process each and every day that were containing raw materials, maybe packaging materials, finished goods. All of these were being received daily at the site, and the certificates that they needed to understand and compare to the specification reports, those certificate of analyses had